Hi there. Hope you have a fantastic day today. This lesson, I will teach you how to work out exact trig ratios. Of course, there is a PDF file versions on the description below for you to download so you can work with me. Otherwise, let's go straight into it. First one. So we need to work out the exact value for tan of 75 degrees. Of course, we cannot just work out the exact value for tan of 75. However, we can work out the exact value of tan of 45 and tan of 30 degrees. And we know that 75 degrees is equal to 45 degrees plus 30 degrees, or 30 degrees plus 45 degrees. So therefore, we are going to use trig identity to work this out. So first of all, let me just write this down. So tan of 75 degrees is equal to tan of 45 degrees plus 30 degrees. And we know the trig identity, and tan of A plus B, so that will give me tan of A with plus tan of B over 1 minus tan of A times tan of B. So now what we need to do is we just replace A and B with 45 and 30 degrees. So we know that 45 is A. This is A, and 30 degrees is B. So we can just write tan of A. So tan of A is tan of 45 degrees, and tan of B is 30 degrees for that. So now let me just write it out. So that gives me tan of A, which is tan of 45 degrees. And then we add tan of B. So tan of B is tan of 30 degrees. We over 1 minus tan of 45 degrees times tan of 30 degrees. So there you go. So now we just need to work out tan of 45 and tan of 30 degrees. And we know that tan of 45 degrees is 1. So let me just write this down. So that will give me 1 plus tan of 30 degrees. So tan of 30 degrees is 1 over root 3. Now, please remember that. If you don't, then we can just use calculator. Just quickly work it out. Let me just show you. So to put in a calculator, so first of all, we need to change the calculator mode into degree mode. If your calculator is in radian, you need to go shift, setup, and we go to degrees mode, which is option 3. I press 3. Now I'm just gonna press tan of 30 degrees. So that will give me an irrational number. Now, don't forget, if you square an irrational number, you will get a rational number. So let me just square this. So there you go. Give me 1/3. I press SD button. So tan square of 30 degrees is 1 over 3. So therefore, tan of 30, which is square root of 1 over square root of 3. So that means square root 1 is 1. So 1 over square root 3. Keep that in mind. So 1 over square root of 3 over 1 minus. So tan of 45 degrees is 1. And tan of 30 degrees times by 1 over root 3. Because tan 30 is 1 over root 3. So let me just simplify a little bit further. So this will give me 1 plus 1 over root 3 over 1 minus 1 over square root of 3. So now what we can do is we simplify the numerator by adding fractions and simplify the denominator in the same process. And then we just one fraction over the other fractions. So we just flip the second fractions, okay? But I'm not going to do that. There's a simpler way to do this. So what we can do is we just get rid of the root 3. So to do this, I times the numerator, like the top, by root 3 and the bottom fractions by root 3. So let me just write this down. So I times the top here by square root of 3, and this one times by square root of 3. So that will make it easier for us. So if we time this in, so that will give me 1 times root 3 is root 3. So that give me root 3. So this time together, so root 3 cancel out. So give me 1. So plus 1 over. So now root 3 times 1 is equal to root 3. So that is root 3. And root 3 times 1 over root 3. So give me 1. So that means minus 1. So there you go. But we can simplify even further by rationalize the denominator. So in another word, I times the denominator by root 3 plus 1. And we times the numerator by root 3 plus 1. So the bottom will give me difference of 2 square. So that will give me root 3 square minus 1 square. And root 3 square is 3. And 1 square is 1. So 3 minus 1. So let me just write this down. So the numerator is perfect square. So that is root 3 plus 1 times root 3 plus 1. So that's square. So that becomes root 3 square is 3. And 1 times root 3 is root 3. And we double that. So 2 root 3. And we plus 1 square. So that gives me 1. I just expand this by using perfect square. That's all. So the top here, that becomes 4 plus 2 root 3. So that is 4 plus 2 square root of 3 over root 3 square minus 1 square. So that means 3 minus 1. 3 minus 1. So that will give me, so the numerator, so I can take the common factor out. In this case, the common factor is 2. So I take it out. So 2. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then the 2 root 3, I take the 2 out. So leave with root 3. Over, of course, 3 minus 1 is 2. And I can simplify this out. So that will give me 2 plus square root of 3. So therefore, tan of 75 degrees is 2 plus square root of 3. Now part B, cos of 135 degrees. And we know that 135 degrees is exactly the same as 90 plus 45. So we just write this down. So cos of 90 degrees plus 45 degrees. Or 45 degrees plus 90 degrees if you like. So now I just use trig identity. And we know that cos of A plus B, that will give me cos of A times cos of B. And then we minus sine of A times sine of B. So now we know that A in this case here is 90 degrees and B is 45 degrees. So cos A cos B means cos of 45 times cos of 90, or cos of 90 times cos of 45. So that will give me cos of 90 degrees times cos of 45 degrees. And we minus sine A sine B. So sine of 90 times sine of 45 degrees. So sine of 90 degrees, sine of 45 degrees. And we know that cos of 90 is 0. So this one here is equal to 0. So 0 times any numbers will give me 0. So therefore, we know that this part here is 0. Minus sine of 90 degrees is 1. And sine of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2. So we just go minus 1 over square root of 2. And that will give me equal to negative 1 over root 2. So there you go. So if we want to simplify a bit further, we can rationalize the denominator by times the bottom by root 2. Of course, the numerator we need to times by root 2 as well. So times by root 2 times root 2. So this will give me negative square root of 2 over 2. So there you go. Cos of 135 degrees is equal to negative root 2 over 2, or negative 1 over root 2. Part C, sine of 15 degrees. Of course, we know that 15 degrees is 45 degrees minus 30 degrees. So let me just write this down. So that is equal to sine of 45 degrees with minus 30 degrees. And we know the identity is sine of A minus B. That will give me sine of A cos of B, we minus cos of A sine of B. So now what we do, we just use this identity, and A is 45 degrees, B is 30 degrees. So therefore, sine A cos B means sine 45 times cos 30. So let me just write this down. So that is sine of 45 degrees cos of 30 degrees. And we minus cos A sine B. So therefore, cos A means cos of 45 times sine of 30 degrees. So cos of 45 times sine of B, that is 30 degrees. So there you go. So we know that sine of 45 is 1 over root 2. So that will give me 1 over square root of 2 times cos of 30 degrees. So cos of 30 degrees is root 3 over 2. So times by root 3 over 2, we minus cos of 45 degrees. Cos of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2. So 1 over square root of 2. We times sine of 30 degrees is a half. So we just times by a half. Now I just tidy up a little bit. So this will give me root 3 over 2 square root of 2 minus 1 over 2 square root of 2. So now let me just rationalize the denominator first. So by times root 2, bottom here, and the top, of course, I need to do the same thing. And this one I times by square root of 2, this time by square root of 2. So now I just simplified. So root 3 times square root 2, the answer is square root of 6. Of course, root 2 times root 2 is 2. So this gives me 2, and then 2 times 2 is 4. So let me just write this down. And then we minus square root of 2 over, and we have square root of 2, we times square root of 2, that give me 2. And 2 times these 2 here give me 4. So over 4. Since the denominator is the same, so I just write in one fraction. So this will give me square root of 6, and then we minus square root of 2, all over 4. So there you go. Please pause the video and try this one yourself. Hi there, I'm back. How do you go? So let me go through it with you, okay? Before I do that, please do not forget to give me a thumb up and subscribe if you haven't done so you can help me to grow my channel. So let's get into it. First one. So tan of 15 degrees. And we know that 15 degrees is equal to 45 degrees minus 30 degrees. So that means this will give me tan of 45 degrees and we minus 30 degrees. And we know the trig identity, that is tan of A minus B. So that will give me tan of A minus tan of B over 1 plus tan of A times tan of B. So plus tan of A tan of B. So now we know that A and B, that is A is 45 degrees, B is 30 degrees. So tan A, that means tan of 45. Let me just write this down. So tan A, which is 45 degrees, minus tan of B, B is 30 degrees. So therefore, minus tan of 30 degrees over 1 plus, so tan A times tan B. So tan A is tan of 45 and tan B, that is tan of 30 degrees. So now what we need to do is we just need to work out the exact value for tan of 45 degrees and tan of 30 degrees. And we know that tan of 45 degrees is 1. So that will give me 1 minus, and tan of 30 degrees is 1 over square root of 3. So that is 1 over square root of 3 over 1 plus, and tan of 45 degrees is 1. And we times tan of 30 degrees is 1 over square root of 3. So 1 over square root of 3. So now let me just tidy up a little bit more. So that will give me 1 minus 1 over square root of 3 over 1 plus 1 over square root of 3. Now, of course, we can simplify these fractions by just subtracting fractions, and we adding fractions. Simplify the numerator and the denominator first and give us 2 fractions, and then we divide by them together. So we just flip the second fractions. But then there's a lot of steps involved. So what I do is easier. I can just multiply the top by square root of 3 and the bottom by square root of 3 as well. So we just want to get rid of the square root of 3. So what I do now is I just times the top by square root of 3 and the bottom, which is times by square root of 3. So whatever I do on the top, and we need to just do the same thing on the bottom. So now I'm just removing the brackets. So I go square root of 3 times 1. That will give me square root of 3. And square root of 3 times 1 over square root of 3. So that cancel out. That give me 1. So that is minus 1. Over. So root 3 times 1 give me square root of 3. And square root of 3 times 1 over square root of 3. So we cancel out. So that give me 1. So that is plus 1. So there you go. But then I can even simplify a bit further by rationalize the denominator. So in another word, I times the bottom by square root of 3 minus 1. And we times the top by square root of 3 minus 1 as well. So therefore, the bottom becomes difference of 2 square. So that will give me, so that is, so the top is square root of 3 minus 1 all square. So that means root 3 square is 3. And root 3 times minus 1 becomes negative root 3. And we double that. So that becomes minus 2 square root of 3. And we add 1. And we simplify further. 3 plus 1 is 4. And then 4 minus 2 square root of 3. So let me just write this down. So that will give me 4 minus 2 square root of 3 over difference of 2 square. So root 3 square give me 3. And 1 square is 1. So we minus that. So that will give me, so 4 minus 3 root 2. I can simplify by take out the common factor. So the common factor is 2. And 4 divided by 2 is 2 minus root 3 over 2. So therefore, the 2, we can cancel this out. So the answer is 2 minus square root of 3. So there you go. That is the answer. Part B, cos of 165 degrees. And we know that 165 degrees is equal to 120 degrees. We add another 45 degrees. So that is equal to cos of 120 degrees plus 45 degrees. And that will give me, and the trig identity is cos of A plus B. That will give me cos of A, cos of B, and minus sine of A and sine of B. So now A is 120 degrees, B is 45. So this means that cos A cos B, that means cos of 120 times cos of 45. So cos of 120 degrees times cos of 45 degrees. And then we minus sine A sine B. That is sine of 120 and sine of 45 degrees. So will give me sine of 120 degrees, sine of 45 degrees. Now we can simplify further by finding cos of 120. So we know that cos of 120, so 120 degrees is on the second quadrant. So this is 120 degrees. So therefore, the reference angle is 60 degrees. And in the second quadrant, so therefore, cos of 120 degrees is exactly the same as negative cos of 60 degrees because it is in the second quadrant. So let me just write this down. That is become negative cos of 60 degrees. So let me write cos of 45 degrees down minus sine of 120 degrees. And we know that 120 degrees is on the second quadrant. So therefore, sine of 120 degrees is exactly the same as sine of 60 degrees. So I just write this down, sine of 60 degrees. And sine of 45 degrees, I just write this down. So now, cos of 60 degrees is a half. So that becomes minus a half. And cos of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2. So times 1 over square root of 2. And we minus sine of 60 degrees is root 3 over 2. And times sine of 45 degrees. So we know that sine of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2. So 1 over square root of 2. So that will give me, let me just tidy up a little bit. So that give you minus 1 over 2 square root of 2. Minus root 3 over 2 square root of 2. So what I do now is I just rationalize the denominator by times root 2. Okay? So time by root 2, time by root 2. We get rid of this as well by time by square root of 2 times square root of 2. So now 1 times square root 2 is square root 2. So just go minus square root of 2 over, we have root 2 times root 2, give me 2. And 2 times 2 is 4. So that is 4. And we minus, and we have square root 3 times square root 2. So that will give me square root 6. So 6 square root over, and we know that square root 2 times square root 2, that give me 2, and 2 times these 2 here give me 4. So there you go. So that will give me negative root 2 minus square root of 6 over 4. Or we can write this way. So we can take negative 1 out, and the 4, we just write it out. So that is can be written as root 2 plus square root of 6, if you like, okay? Last one, sine of 105 degrees. And we know that 105 degrees is equal to 60 degrees plus 45 degrees. So this is equal to sine of 60 degrees plus 45 degrees. Or 45 degrees plus 60 degrees, if you like. So we know the identity is equal to sine of 60 we times by cos of 45. And we plus cos of 60 degrees times sine of 45 degrees. I just use trig identity to expand this, okay? And now what I do, I just need to work out sine and cos of 60 and 45 degrees. So sine of 60 degrees is root 3 over 2. And cos of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2. So 1 over square root of 2. And we add cos of 60 degrees is a half. So that becomes 1 over 2. And times, and sine of 45 degrees will give me 1 over square root of 2. So 1 over square root of 2. So now what I do, I just tidy up a little bit. So that will give me 1 times root 3, give me root 3. And this is 2 square root of 2. We add 1 over, of course, 2 times root 2 is 2 square root of 2. So there you go. But then I can rationalize the denominator by times square root of 2. So this time by square root of 2, this of course need to time by square root of 2. And the same with this term here. We times square root 2, we times square root of 2. Because I want to get rid of the square root of 2 down bottom. So what I do now, it is equal to square root of 6 over, so root 2 times root 2 will give me 2. And then we times 2, so that give me 4. And then we add 1 times square root 2, give me square root 2 over, and we have root 2 times square root 2, give me 2. And then 2 times 2 is 4. There you go. But then I can write in one fraction. So that will give me square root of 6 plus square root of 2 over 4. Or square root of 2 plus square root of 6 over 4. And thank you so much for watching my videos. And I hope you got it correct. Bye.